Well, hello, and thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Friday Reporter podcast. Today's episode is with Sarakshi Rai, who is the Director of Audience and Social Media at the Hill newspaper. Thank you, Sarakshi, for being with me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So let's just jump into it. Tell me a little bit about your pathway to getting to the Hill. Tell me about your background and how you got started.
So it's very interesting. I was born and raised in Bombay, or Mumbai as it's known now, in India, and I always wanted to be a journalist. My family is media adjacent, and I grew up, watching my father put his magazine to bed every month and interview people and just be such a perfectionist and pay attention to detail while he was editing this magazine that I knew I always wanted to be a reporter and a journalist. There was never any question that I would, get into any other profession. So I started interning when I was 16, and I interned every place that could take me, from, local newspapers to National Geographic India to, asking them if they wanted anyone to interview people, or writing to editors to say, hey, I'd love to intern for you over the summer. So, I had internships lined up from when I was 16 up until when I left India to do my master's at 20. And then I was a graduate of history and political science, and then realized I really wanted to do my master's in journalism. And my parents struggled to save enough money because of the exchange rate to send me to London. I went to London, had the best time of my life. In that 1 year, I did 3 more internships at the Times of London, at Draper's Magazine, and at Lonely Planet Traveler in the UK. And then, being Indian, and as most journalists who come to study in the US from India know, getting a visa and a work sponsorship opportunity for us is very rare. So I went back home to India, worked as a political journalist at this media startup, First Post. And that's when I was first introduced to the aspect of audience in journalism. I had a very cool executive editor, and she was always looking at Chartbeat and looking at the numbers and looking at what else we could do and how we could, get Google to push our story up. So it was a very exciting time. And I worked with, some of the best women leaders at that time. And then a couple of years after that, I left to go live in Dubai and work as the digital editor of Esquire in Dubai, because I felt that my career in India wasn't really going place, and I wanted to go back to being an international journalist again. So fast forward, I've been in Dubai 5 years, and then the pandemic hit, and I met my husband in grad school, and he is from DC, and he wanted to come home. And it was the year of the elections, 2020. He just got a freelance opportunity working for a media company in DC, and we were like, why not? It's elections. And we came here, and I was very nervous about having to start from scratch because my career had already been so established.
Sure.
I really, struggle to, especially as a woman, of color, and as an immigrant journalist, you always have to like start from scratch and make those connections again, and prove your worth time and time
Sure.
again. So I was very lucky in the sense that the Hill kind of offered me a deputy managing editor of social media position right off the bat, not knowing anything about my history and anything about my background. They took that chance, and here I am. I'm now the director of audience, and it's been a really fun journey so far.
Okay, that's awesome. You've been way more places than I've ever been. That's so impressive. And also too, like taking that leap of faith, right? To come here and to get here and to be here. And now, like at an exciting time, 2020 was, I mean, you really sort of, I mean, head first right into the busiest, what I can ever remember, busiest news cycles of our lifetime, really. So tell me a little bit now about what the director of audience for The Hill does.
It's a really exciting job. No day is the same. You're really strategizing and working on a daily basis with the editors, reporters, and planning for the future to figure out, how do you make people keep coming back to your website for more? What can we give them? What value are we, putting to our content that is something that people appreciate, that they value, that they want to keep coming back for more? How can we, you know, get them to be a loyal user of our site, a loyal consumer of what we produce? And that is exciting in itself, because, when you finally give the audience what they want and what they want to read, then, they just want to keep coming back for more because they trust you. You're a trusted resource for them, and you're laying it out straight. So it's a very exciting job. It involves working with reporters, editors. I've worked very closely with my managing editor and the other editors on my team, but I also work across the company to work with our product team to visualize, what do we need to do to set ourselves apart from our competitors, because it's a highly competitive field that
Oh
we're
yeah, no
and
doubt.
we're all stacked very close together, and what differentiates us is not only our journalism, which is amazing, but the products that we offer our readers, and how do we keep innovating and keep growing and keep giving them something that they value. So it's very exciting, and no day is the same.
I love that too. And I love that you talk about innovation because when I think about the Hill, I've been in town for 22 years myself, which is unbelievable. I mean, I came here with a plan to move back. I'm from the Northeast, to move home in 2 years. So here I am. Um, but innovation is probably the most descriptive word that I would use for the way the Hill operates. The Hill has continued to reinvent and restore and refine and find neat and different ways to stay super relevant in a town where newspapers really do. They ebb and they flow, they come and they go. But your publication continues to be one that I am just increasingly impressed with. Talk to me though about, this is a real, like, the job that you do is really hard, and it's hard because there are so many competing interests. I mean, for a lot of different reasons, whether it's TV, whether it's advertising, there's so many ways to get in front of your audiences. Would you talk to me a little bit about maybe some of the things you're finding now that are trends that you are finding useful or interesting? And it could be the kinds of things that we're seeing already, but I'm curious to pick your brain a little bit about that.
I think it's so interesting you say that, right? Like one eye is always on our competitors and what they're doing, but you can't be too focused in what everyone else is doing, because then you're going to be too focused on them and not focused enough on what you need to be doing to reach more people, right? So that's always been our philosophy at The Hill, where we keep an eye on them and we keep a close eye on them, but we don't really focus too much. We still do what we do and what we're good at, which is, giving people unbiased news of what goes on in Congress and how it actually impacts regular Americans. People forget that. But, in terms of the trends that we're seeing, it's what we learn in journalism school, right? The who, what, where, why, when, and how. And I feel like more often than not, the more experience people get in this industry, they forget that the regular person just wants to understand what the issue is at hand. And I
Sure.
think that's something that The Hill has done really well over the last year, that has allowed us to really grow our audience even more than in 2022. We've just been on a growth spurt, which has been amazing, but it's because we give people that context. Like, we give them the policy focus on it, and we give them what we're good at, which is, decoding policy for our readers. But we also, have created this environment to draw new people in, to give them the basics so they understand what the issue is. There's no point breaking down this highly complex, NDAA bill or the speakership fight if we're only appealing to the audience that lives in Washington, D.C. or the
Yeah.
DMV, right? You have to explain it to the regular Americans. Why should they care about what happens in DC? And not being from the States, when I travel to different states, which I really love doing because it exposes me to all different kinds of Americans who live here and who call this beautiful country their home. I'm always amazed at how little attention they pay to what happens in DC or in Congress, right? So you really need to
Absolutely.
break it down for them, make them care about why this is important, why, what is happening, how does Ukraine aid really impact them? We don't really know. We'll write our stories about Ukraine aid and the fight that's going on in Capitol Hill, but for the regular American, why is this important? And I think we give them that aspect of news, and that's really, I think, it's not really a trend, but it's our philosophy. It's like breaking down a complex subject so that the regular person sitting at home who has no idea and has no connection to Washington DC can
Yeah.
also understand the journalism we create and produce. So we really, we have that stuff as well for the congressional readership,
Oh
but we
yeah,
also
yeah.
have the stuff that's needed for the regular Americans to understand,
I love
what
that.
they need.
I totally love that. And I say that all the time. That's the biggest disconnect that that we talk about when we talk about in politics. We talk about, not only talking about the issues that are inside the Beltway, but breaking them down so people understand that, a safe Europe, a stable Ukraine means a safe US, right? And those kinds of things are really, really being communicated out. But you also, too, at the Hill are really good about meeting people where they are. So like you're very smart about having a smart social strategy. You're smart about having like visual and print. So because everybody consumes information and news stories differently. And I love that you guys have really done a nice job of integrating all of that into the products that you're doing. I know you're gearing up for 24, and I know you have some new things that are on the horizon. Can you talk to me a little bit about what we can expect from you in the new year without breaking any news today?
Yeah, it's really cool. We recently announced this new partnership with Decision Desk in the month of October, and we're going to be partnering with them on elections. And I think what you'll find from the Hill in 2024 is that it's going to be really exciting because we're going to be having these amazing products that people can actually consume and understand what exactly is happening with the election. They'll be able to tell straight away. They're going to have it decoded for them. There's not going to be any confusion around or any kind of, mystified
Good.
stuff that
Yeah.
can't kind of understand. It'll be broken down in a very logical and way where, the regular person is not confused after they come to our election site. So
Right.
it's going to be really fun. It's going to be a very engaging product that we're going to launch. But really, like I said, our philosophy at the Hill is what can we give our readers that they need, right? So we're going to give them the content that they need. We're going to give them, what kinds of policy is each candidate espousing? What do they mean? Where do they stand on foreign policy? Where do they stand on health? Where do they stand on defense? And if you look at some of the stuff we've already created, which is our candidates page on our election center right now, you really get a sense where we've broken down where each candidate stands on different policies. So we're just going to keep adding to that information, and we're going to let our readers decide what they want to do with the information, but we're going to give it to them in the most unbiased way possible.
I love that. And I think that that's so incredibly important, especially because it is the barrier to entry for information and understanding of the United States election process is not just it's not just confusing to folks outside the US. Plenty of people that are outside of Washington, D.C. are profoundly confused by all of it. And that is accentuated by the disinformation that also happens. So many people now are getting their news in their own curated channels, right? They're getting information from where their resources are. So if they're Republican inclined or they're Democrat inclined, they're getting news sources that feed into what they care about. What kinds of things are you working on? What are you doing at the Hill to try to appeal to a broader audience? Because I think that that's something that you also do very well.
I think we're staying true to what the Hill is, which is an unbiased source of policy and news, that you can use. And I think what's great about us is that we're very cautious about approaching each subject with no bias. We have a very stringent process and something that our editor-in-chief and managing editor really focus on a lot, and I think that alone kind of helps us maintain our readership and helps us appeal to a broad audience, because we don't, if you look at any of the media biases chart from, the last 10 years, the Hill is very squarely right in the center, right? We have no bias. We approach a subject in the most, you know, unbiased way possible, and I think that's what helps us. And once, a lot of different companies kind of struggle with that, which is why, it's hard for them to build that audience, but we already have that. So
Right.
now we just need to kind of make sure our journalism is still strong, make sure the products we're offering are still innovative, and that's what we need to do to kind of still appeal to our audience. So our core audience base will keep coming back to us because they know what we are and what they get when they come to thehill.com.
Yeah.
It's very clear, from what
Appreciate
we
that
do
so
on a
much.
daily
Yeah,
basis.
I think that that's so cool. I'm curious. This is the second time I've only asked this question now twice. I had a guest who just now is she's a U.S. citizen, but she's just back from having been in Europe for some time as a journalist. What do you think what did you learn when you came to the US after having reported in London and in Dubai and all these other remarkable places? What are some of the takeaways? What are some of the things that either surprised you or that were different from what your perception was when you came to the US?
I love it. It was always my dream to work in the United States. You know, we all watch those amazing journalism movies, you know, growing up, especially being a journalism student, you know, and you really want to be in the heart of it. So DC was always a dream that I honestly never thought possible, but you know, I am living my dream right now. So it's always fun. But it's everything I thought it would be. You know, it's a little bit of House of Cards, a little bit of Veep, a little bit of, you know, Saturday Night Live, but it's
Yeah.
everything that you think it's going to be, but more. And it's so exciting. But I was pleasantly surprised by how much I would love the
Mhm.
house side of things. Like I, you know, helped cover Speaker McCarthy's election battles in January, and you know he went through all of those rounds. I was there sitting in the press gallery, you know, helping the congressional team work on a live blog, and then again I was, you know, covering his battle once again, you know, a couple of months later, and then Speaker Johnson's eventual rise. So it's just always exciting how much happens in the House, and I get it, you know, it's that perpetual kind of battle that people in DC have, you know, is
I
it
love
House,
it.
the Senate,
I'm a house girl all day long.
right?
I worked in the house, so it's my favorite place. It does feel like uh it's rough and tumble. It's a little bit of, you don't know what you're going to get, and it's kind of fun too. Yeah.
And it's amazing. And I just, so that was what was unexpected to me. I didn't realize how much I would love the nitty gritties of the house workings.
If you were to draw a comparison in terms of journalism from Europe and overseas to here, is there anything that stands out that's different here in the US?
I think, you know, the journalism is the same everywhere, but you know, but for here, I think it's a bit more fast moving, I would say, compared
Okay.
to some of the other places I've worked.
Mhm.
You know, India, I think relates, the journalism there relates to the sense because, you know, we have a very, you know, we have the lower house and the upper house, and, you know, we have all of these elections and 1.6
Mhm.
billion people. So I think India compares the most to, I think, the urgency and the freshness and the
Interesting.
excitement of you know United States
Yeah. Well,
working.
that's so interesting. The other thing I had someone tell me is that her comparison was that here is a little more there's a little more entertainment in the journalism, whereas overseas she had done quite a bit in London and some other places too, and talked a little bit about how it was straight news, whereas here there's another, like, a level of also entertainment and kind of fun that's injected into it too. That was kind of the takeaway that she had, that it sounds like maybe is a little bit of what you're hearing too.
Yeah, definitely. I think also, you know, here there's a lot more biases involved than covering um the government in the UK. You know, very it's very straight-laced. You can't really express an opinion on social media or, you know, online. So I
It
think
used
that,
to be different here. It's crazy now.
yeah, definitely.
That's so cool. So, okay, so when you're not working on audience development and you're not working on social, okay, quick question though. Social is changing like so much. Um,
Massively.
any tips or tricks or things that you think are working in the social space today that maybe you can offer to the listener today?
I mean, you look at all of the polls recently, you know, and you look at how much the generation that comes after us is using social media to get their news. You know, so many youngsters get their news from TikTok, from Instagram, from you know, not so much from Twitter, but Reddit is a surprising you know, new social media. Not new because they've been around for a while, but I think people are using it more and consuming it more and using it for their news source more. So I think that especially for a brand like The Hill to stay relevant, right? We focus on our social media as a way to draw a younger, newer, fresher audience and try and convert them into loyal readers. You know, so if you look at our Instagram, it's very fun, it's very fresh. It gives you the information you need that you can just, you know, swipe through a couple of slides, get everything you need to know about the story. And if you're so inclined, you can then click the link in bio and then, you know, understand it. We recently launched a TikTok, which is slow going because, you know, we're a couple of years behind the curve, but we still get over over, 900,000 views a month on just our TikTok alone. So
Wow.
we're trying to crack that platform as well. But that's what I love about working at the Hill is the innovativeness and the ability to use a trial and error method to
I
determine what
love
works
that.
for us and what doesn't. But really I found that, the sheer number of audiences we reach, our engagement and reach on Instagram, we have about, 300,000 followers, but we reach over 1 million users a month because of
Wow.
how much they engage with our content and how much they share it with their friends. So that's my biggest marker of, it's not the follower count, but it's how much people are sharing our stuff on Instagram with their friends. So I always look at the share stat,
That's
because that
interesting.
means that you've actually created something that people are engaging with and want to share either with their friends or on their stories. So I'm a huge believer that you have to have social media to kind of engage, because where else are they going to find us from? How are we going to 10 years down the line, how are you going to continue to draw the audience? Because our loyal readers are the Gen Zs of today.
Right.
We need to get them while they're young and get them to understand what the Hill stands for, so
Mm-hmm.
that 10 years down the line, they're going to be like, hey, I actually recognize them from, this great TikTok series they did
Sure.
10 years later. And they might be working in policy or government now, and they'll be like, you know what? Yeah, I trust them. They're a good source for me to keep going to.
Yeah.
So you have to, I think,
Makes sense.
use all of these platforms that we have at our disposal and just keep trying. And, either sometimes you fail, but more often than not, I find with social media, you do end up succeeding. And Reddit is a great platform for that experimentation too.
That's so interesting. My teenagers both have Reddit accounts, and I mean, I like how you say it's an old platform, but it's a platform that has really been infused with a lot of energy and seems to be a place where people are attracted to. But also, too, I love that you say trial and error, because I think that that's right. Like, what's going to work? You never really know, right? I mean, there's no strategy to people. Clients will come and they'll say, "I'd really like to make a viral something." Well, the truth is that that's all very organic. So you have to really kind of try a couple of different things and be willing to be experimenting to try to see what it is that's going to catch fire, right? And that's a big part of it.
100%. It's exactly what I tell my team. They're like, oh, I worked really hard on this video and it didn't get, it only got 10,000 views, but I didn't work so hard on this one and it got, you know, 300,000 views. Like, what's the, and it's like, sometimes you just never know what is gonna tick and what's gonna make people consume it more. But
Right.
so that's why you have to keep trying, because that's the beauty of the algorithms, right?
Yeah.
You never know when they take
Just don't
off.
never
So
know.
that's exactly. And so that's why I'm a huge believer in the trial and error method, because you can't say for sure that something's going to take off, because you just can't. That's
Yeah.
just not the nature of the algorithm on social media right now. But if you keep trying, maybe you might be able to crack it more and more, because you're like, okay, that worked. I'm just going to keep tweaking it
What
until
did
it
I do
keeps
there?
working.
Yeah. And then maybe
Exactly.
maybe you exhaust it and you have to move on to something else. How many people are on your team?
So I have a team of 8
Okay. That's a
right
big
now.
group.
Yeah.
That's a big group.
Yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
they're very talented. They're very great, and they're hungry. I really love people who ask questions, who engage, who don't just, I think, rest once it does well, but they ask the question, why did it do well?
I love
What
that.
made this do well? And I think most of the people on my team have that questioning capability, which is, it's the only way we're going to succeed. If we keep
Yeah.
questioning how to improve what we do.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I love it's so much of it is just trial and error, and having smart people that are curious about the work that they do also makes that much more interesting and that much more compelling as they grow and they expand. So Sarakshi, when you're not in the journalism space, what is it that keeps you busy? What kinds of
So
things?
since I'm
Yeah.
So since I'm on social media so much, I tend to get drawn into these TikTok books. So
Okay.
I've recently been reading this fantasy series called Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, which is really interesting. It's fantasy, romance, but it's huge on TikTok and it has a huge readership on TikTok. So I've been recently delving into that series, but mostly it's, our jobs are so stressful that sometimes you just need to switch off and just read a romance novel, or my husband and I love to go on walks. We live, DC has so many parks, so it's always fun to
Best.
take a
Yeah,
weekend and just keep, walking through a park, and you never know where you'll end up. But
absolutely.
yeah, it's really fun, and we love to try new food. So we recently went to an Ethiopian place in Cleveland Park, which is great. It's just opened up.
What's the
So
name? The
yeah,
name?
we're either it's called I'll have to get the name for you. It's
Okay.
just open in Cleveland Park. And it's really it's in Woodley. It's right next to the Woodley metro station,
I know exactly
right
what you're
next to
talking about.
the the McDonald's,
Okay.
and
Oh yeah,
it's
I know
amazing.
exactly there. All right, you'll have to get me the name because I'll put it in the show notes
I
so
will.
people know. Because you know
Yes.
how DC we all are. We all like book recommendations and we all love streaming
Elsa's
recommendations.
Ethiopian Elsa's Ethiopian Kitchen.
Elsa's.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I'm
it's
all,
local, so
I
we
know.
love
I
local
love that.
restaurants and giving them a little bit of a boost.
I
And
love
they've just
that.
opened, could use
Okay,
it.
awesome. Well, that's good because food recommendations are always a hit on the show. And book recommendations too. My daughter is in on the TikTok book. The what do they call it? It's not TikTok books.
Book talks.
Book talk.
Book
That's
talk.
right. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Because we spend a lot of time sort of like because she's got a running list of the ones that she wants to read. So I think that that's a great recommendation. Okay, so as we get to the end of our 30 minutes, which we could probably talk another hour and a half, we have so much to catch up on. Um, who is it that I should reach out to for a future episode of the show?
So two women I admire. I'll give you two recommendations.
Please.
One is Erica Allen. She's at the Washington Post and she's the head of audience. She is someone who is just so sharp and fascinating and just a pleasure to speak to. So I would definitely recommend her. But you may have already spoken to her, but another one is my colleague Julia Manchester. She's a campaign reporter at The Hill, and she's been, on the trail for us and really been covering the election cycle.
I haven't talked to her. I
And so
follow
I
her.
think
Yeah, she's doing great
and I
work.
think she'd be an amazing, amazing guest on the show.
Oh, awesome. Well, they both would be great. I know Erica, I know the Washington Post is going through a big changeover now too. So I bet Erica has a lot to offer because I bet they're probably in a very new sort of development process as well. Shiraxi, thank you. Thank you so much for your time today. This was so fun. We're going to have to do it again because there's so much more to talk about.
Thanks for having me. This was amazing.